Welcome to the Intentional Encourager podcast, where each episode brings you compelling conversations and stories designed to entertain, enlighten, and encourage. And now here's your host, Bryan Sexton.
And welcome into the Intentional Encourager podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Sexton. Thank you for joining us again today. And I am so excited to be talking to this guy right here. Not only is he my first namesake, a little different spelling, little different spelling, but he's got a wealth of great information to share with us today and encouragement to share with us. He is a partner in a company called OnPurpose Growth. Now, if there was ever a fit for the Intentional Encourager podcast, talking to a guy whose company's name is On Purpose, it's this guy right here. He's a speaker, he's an author, a trainer, a coach. Is there any more room in your life to do anything else? Bryan McDonald, welcome to the Intentional Encourager podcast.
Thanks for having me on, man. And I'm sure I'll find room for something else. My wife will probably ask me not to, but par for the course, right?
Well, that's kind of wives for you. It's like, are you doing that? It's at least what my wife says. Are you doing that? Maybe one of these times, Bryan, I'll get my wife to come on the Intentional Encourager podcast, but I think I've got a better shot of making this NBA restart that they're doing in Orlando, or maybe making the Reds pitching staff than I do of getting her on the Intentional. How are you today, my man? It's good to have you on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Feeling blessed and doing great. Every day is a great day to create something new or just be happy. So I'm happy for today.
Man, that's great. Let me go here for just a second. You talk about your company. I love the name of your company, OnPurpose Growth, because again, I think we have seen in these last several months here, as we record this in the summer of 2020, how purpose people have been purposeful about things, whether socially, whether around the pandemic. It seems that there have been a ton of purpose around messaging. When you think about purpose in today's climate, what does it mean to you now as opposed to what it meant to you maybe a year ago?
It's a great question. I think the importance of it has grown, right? I think it's always been important. And I think maybe people are realizing now that being relevant with that message and pointed is just the best way to operate. I think that we were in an economy that allowed a lot of fat to be accumulated, and we're trimming some fat. So those that are very principle-based, less reactive, are understanding how to stick to those principles and have your message pointed, is just stick to the basics, right? I think that's a basic, right? Does that make sense?
Well, it makes perfect sense. And Bryan, here's the thing. We in our country 12 years ago, and it hasn't been that long ago, we went through a recession, not caused by a global pandemic, but because economics are cyclical. You're going to have good times and bad. It's a cycle. But you said something that I love that you said. You said we had to get lean during this time of pandemic. You would have thought that the recession of 2008 would have taught us as a society, as a business community, to function lean and stay lean to a certain degree. But we didn't. When we got that modicum of success, we went right back. And I say we as a business community, a country, things like that, we went right back to those same habits. Why do you think it's so hard for business communities and businesses to forget? Or let me rephrase the question this way. how do businesses so easily forget the lean times and what they had to do to survive and get lean when things are good?
It's interesting because there's a couple of things that, cliches that work in sometimes, and when applied in the wrong time, they don't work, right? So have a short memory, right? When you fail, have a short memory, and keep looking into the future so you can succeed. That at the same time, if you have a short memory, you forget about what happened, it sets you up for failure.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, in 2008, around that time, I was building a mortgage business. I was investing in real estate, and my whole world crashed around me. For sake of a deep explanation, I learned from that. And I believe that is a key ingredient in being able to succeed in a time like now, because, I'm looking around during this time and seeing what's going on, like kind of living in the matrix and just being calm and realizing here's the moves that I'm going to make. And I'm flourishing in a time like this where, and I at times I feel bad saying that, and it's because I one of the ingredients, not the only reason, is because I didn't forget what happened, and I allowed the world to crash around me in 2008, 2009, 2007, and I didn't operate the way that I'm operating now. So to your question, it's, when we too much, we focus on the current moment in a non-productive way, right? You're supposed to be present, but don't be ignorant. And
well, let me jump in there, because I want to park there for just a minute, because to some degree you've been through a financial pandemic. Okay. And so for the first time, as we're recording this, Bryan, there are a lot of people for the first time in their professional careers, they've been either furloughed or working from home. And so, fear sets in, and how long, and what are we going to do? And all this stuff happens because you hear that, and you start to hear it as a chorus. It's not just one voice saying it. It's a chorus of voices saying it, or a choir of voices saying it. I want you to take me through that time in your life. And I was going to wait till a little bit later to go there, but I'm glad you went there now, because I think it's so good to the congruency and the flow of our conversation. Take me to the first kind of the first realization that you realized you had that moment, like, oh man, this could be really bad. This could be really bad.
This is crystal clear to me. So, in the mortgage business, I was writing mortgage loans, and we sold our mortgages to mortgage bankers. So I had wholesale companies that would come in, and I was doing loans for real estate investors, residential and small commercial, under 5 units. And I had really good relationships with these wholesale reps that would come in. And I started, you were seeing a bunch of stuff on TV about Bear Stearns going out of business, and all this, chaos in the financial markets. And I was getting phone calls from these reps saying, "Hey, Bryan, I just want to let you know that we're basically telling people that we're writing loans. We're making kind of the facade that, hey, we're doing this. But if you send a loan to me, one of my underwriters are going to find a reason why to deny it. It's going to look like a loan that you've been putting through, and they're going to not deny it." And when I got the second call like that, I realized, like, holy crap, like, what's going on? And I stepped into the narrative that my world is crashing, as well as the world around me. And then that narrative actually just became true, because my firm belief is people have a choice on how to operate in times, in any time, but especially in a time like now.
Yeah.
You can allow the world to crash around you, or you can take action and figure out how to operate in a more effective way for yourself to get through it. Right? You don't. I'm not saying you have a choice to flourish. You have a choice to get through it. And
so you started early, and I guess what I'm hearing you say, Bryan, is that you had enough foresight and enough understanding that things that were stable in your world, because you mentioned Bear Stearns, and you started seeing signs of stability crumble. And I commend you for having the foresight to go, oh my, this is not good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Bryan, it takes people, some people some people have a V8 moment and they get it immediately and they go, okay, man, this is not good. Let me start to shift and do some things here. It's not that I'm panicking, right? Or, it's like you're driving down the interstate and you see a half a mile ahead, you see a truck that blew out its tire. And or you see smoke rolling off a big rig. To me, that is an indication. When I see smoke rolling off a tire on an 18-wheeler, I'm speeding up and I'm getting around because he's about to blow a tire.
Exactly.
And some people have that foresight and that wisdom, and some people wait until the rubber is flying in their windshield.
Exactly.
Or they're like, oh my gosh, I've got to swerve and try to miss this thing now. When you look back at that time in your life, did you internally, was it a 5-alarm fire, or were you just trying to grab a fire extinguisher and go, if I can get to it now, I can try to put it out and we'll be okay?
Fire extinguisher, 100%. It was kind of like a stick your head in the sand moment, where it's like, hey, if I thought
kind of ride this out a little bit.
If I worked harder, this wouldn't impact me. And at the time, it didn't matter how hard I worked, right? I didn't have the resources to close a loan and do business. So it didn't matter. If I created 100 opportunities, these mortgage companies weren't going to close one of them.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of people struggle, Bryan, with execution. Creating the opportunities isn't their issue; it's executing on the opportunities. You could create the opportunities, you just didn't have the capital to cap, or you could have. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm just kind of thinking in kind of putting myself in that time frame. You might have been able to overextend yourself, which many did in that time. Many people just doubled down and they said, okay, well, we're just gonna go ahead and do business as normal. That head in the sand approach, as you talked about. For you, do you remember that moment that you said, I can't, this now is bigger than me?
I'll paint some color to this because I think it's important. And something you said is, prior to all this happening, I didn't have the foresight to see that there was something impending coming bad. And I don't mean that I'm not inferring that you can tell the future. What I was saying is,
but you can read the tea leaves, right?
Yeah, and I was too aggressive in investing in real estate at the time, so it was like a perfect storm. I had just acquired my last couple pieces of real estate before this tanked, and I didn't set the stage for myself financially to be able to support that through a huge crash. So I think when we talk about a foresight into this, it's not only when it's happening, it's as you build, making sure that you're not too ambitious.
Yeah.
To create an environment where it would just, just completely crash. And once I was in the thick of it, it was just, I had so much going on that it took so much energy to tread water.
Wow.
That,
Yeah.
that, I just tried to convince myself it wasn't going to last. Just tread water longer. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. And here's the thing. And when I think back to that time, you were talking about investing and things like that. We've always heard all of our lives that one of the safest things you can invest in is real estate because it always appreciates. It never depreciates. I've heard my dad and my wife's granddad, they would always say, well, God only made so much land. You can only, there's only so much earth that's available to be had. In my best West Virginia accent there. But Bryan, for a lot of people, they were building their houses, so to speak, on those financial sinking sand principles. And I say that this way, there's a parable in the Bible that talks about the man who built his house upon the sand. And when the waves crashed against it, it knocked it down. But the man who built his house upon a rock and that's why we build houses on rocks.
Yep.
We build houses on foundations so that they'll withstand things that are coming along. I'm sure you saw people that you were close to, that you knew in the business and things like that, go through some terrible things. What was the single greatest lesson that you learned from that time that you use even today in your business?
So it's funny you just mentioned sand and rock, because I was literally 2 days journaling about this. And that's the answer to your question, is not only building a foundation of rock in my business life, but also building a foundation of rock in my personal life so I can operate more efficiently. Just be solid in those two places, because it's what helps get through times like this. Whether you just survive or some people thrive in these times. And even like thinking about real estate too, the comments that you made, I heard the same exact ones. And even now we were in a boom up market, and granted the financial markets aren't collapsing, but a lot of people are having trouble in commercial real estate because there's no tenants, right? People aren't able to pay rent, right? So, thinking about different ways to build a foundation of rock in my life, whether personally or professionally, has been the best thing for me to do, right? That's what's been able for me to help clients in an environment like this, because I'm calm, I'm firm, I'm making strategic moves, and I'm not being reactive to what the world is happening in the world. I'm being proactive by paying attention to what's going on. I mean, I don't have a glass ball to see the future. But I'm not allowing the context to ruin me. Allowing the context to help me make the next move. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And again, I think life is a series of experiences. If you don't learn from experience, that's the old adage about history. If we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. And so, that, and you mentioned something. Here's what I'm seeing, and we'll pivot here in just a minute but what I'm seeing is, you're talking about commercial real estate right now. And I keep an eye on things like that because, again, I think those are great indicators of the total economic picture. You're seeing real residential, at least here. And I live in a state of 1.8 million people, whole state. we're seeing a surge, an uptick, a boom, if you will, in residential real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is flying off the shelves.
Wow.
Flying off the shelves. And I've got a personal situation that we're involved in with my wife's grandfather's house. There are more buyers than there is inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's an unbelievable thing. The pandemic has done, the thing about it is the pandemic, and I was blown away, Bryan, because again, we're in the midst of a global pandemic. The economy was doing this. Just soaring, surging like a jet, and then just starting to tank. But now you see the NASDAQ just kind of that nose of that plane is coming back up, and it's ticking back up. And so it's a great thing. I want you to take us from point A to point B. And I always ask people, I say, because everybody has a story of how they got to this point in their lives. And so I want you to take us back as far as you want to take us back to how you got from here to there, or from there to here in your life, and what brought you to this place, Bryan.
Oh man, I try not to go too long-winded. There's many parts to that story.
It's okay, man. You go as you're like, my wife tells me, she's like, when I'm preaching, she's like, you got 15 minutes.
Yeah, right.
And then
get
it all in there. But no, go as deep as you want to go, because I think everybody's stories, and that's the reason for this podcast is somebody has a story that connects to somebody else who has a similar story. And that's where we start building those bridges and building that encouragement. So, man, the floor is yours. Go as deep as you want to go.
I appreciate that, Bryan. So, how I got to, where I'm at in life with, a family, a business, even living in Chicago, really starts back, growing up. My parents been divorced since I was 1. My mom's been married a couple times. We struggle a lot, whether it was, my dad or my mom, and hard work was instilled in me early on. And when I say hard work, I don't mean just working a lot. I mean, putting in an honest day's work and not being lazy. And we consistently struggled, no matter what, right? Dad worked 2 jobs when I was in high school. I worked 30 hours a week when I was in high school. And when I graduated college, I was living in Pennsylvania. My mom was living in Chicago area, and I moved out here to, start something new, because when I look back, it's like majority of my friends are just going to be doing the same thing, right? If I come back here in 10 years, I can be doing a majority of the same thing, and I wanted something different for myself. And, I got into sales when I was, right out of college, and it was a corporate job, and I realized this corporate thing, not for my personality.
Is that what you wanted to do, was go into sales? Because there are some people that come to that path differently. I know I did. I started out as a journalism major at Marshall.
Oh, wow.
And so, but I came to it differently. But you intentionally went down that road to go into sales and marketing right out of college, right?
Yeah. I mean, I majored in business management and marketing at Penn State, and By the way, you guys ripped off our slogan. I think we had it first.
Oh, we are Marshall.
No,
I think we had it first.
That's another I think
if
podcast.
you watch the movie, we are Marshall. They were saying it back in 1971, or at least Hollywood thinks we said it, and so we're just going to own it, man.
So there's another story. It was about there's a story on how Penn State got there too that I'll share with you sometime.
No, go. I mean, just go ahead, man. I mean,
it was about it was racial. that there was an individual
Yeah.
that was black, and they ran into a situation where the school wanted to stick together, and they said, "Hey, we are,
Yeah.
we are Penn State,"
Yeah.
and it just developed from that. I think what it is no matter what it is, because I've seen the Marshall,
Yeah.
it's a statement about unity,
That's right.
not about like, hey, we're this great football team, right?
Well, and Brian, let me share this, and that's a good point, and I'm glad we're going here for a second, because both schools have gone through some pretty
Mm,
traumatic things. Okay. Marshall's story this year is the 50th anniversary of the plane crash that killed 75 back in 1970,
oh, I didn't
November
realize that.
14th. Yeah. And then just a few years ago, Penn State went through the Jerry Sandusky deal with Joe Paterno, the legendary coach of
Hmm.
Penn State, basically having his whole reputation and career tarnished. I mean, there was even a statue of Joe Pa in front of Penn State Stadium, in front of Beaver
Hmm.
Stadium,
Yep.
that came down. And so both schools have had their share of turmoil and things like that. Small communities that the fabric of the community is woven around the university, just as it is in
Hmm.
State College, just
Hmm.
as it is in Huntington, but went through those traumatic things. When you think back about your time at Penn State and going, growing up in Pennsylvania, going to Penn State, kind of splitting your time between Chicago and in that area, what was the one thing about Penn State that just kind of drew you and said, I'm going there? Did you always love Penn
Oh,
State growing up?
yeah. So my grandfather, my parents grew up outside of Philadelphia, and one of the um, clearest and earliest memories that I had of my dad's dad, my grandfather, is when he and I watched the um, the '84 Fiesta Bowl between Miami and Penn State
Don't
that they
remind me
won.
about that. Don't remind me. I loved Miami. Because
Oh,
I love
really?
teams. I love teams that threw the ball, man. And Miami
Yeah.
just chucked it. And that was, by the way, I don't mean to correct you. That was the '87 Fiesta Bowl because
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
the
yeah,
'86
yeah.
season.
You're right. You're right.
But I loved. I was in high school then. I loved Miami because they just threw it all over the place.
Hmm.
And I didn't like Penn State because they had the white helmets and the Navy
Yep.
uniforms and just. I still have nightmares of Shane Conlon picking off a pass from
Uh,
Vinny Testaverde over the middle.
I was Shane Conlon playing football when I was younger. That's who I impersonated, right? So growing up, in an Irish, well, my parents grew up out that way. It was Irish and Italian Catholics. So you went to either Penn State or Notre Dame, right? Those are the things. And John Capoletti
Yep.
grew up kitty corner to my dad. That
Oh,
we knew
wow.
we knew the Capolettis, right?
Wow.
So uh, it was just this Penn State thing was just ingrained in me, right?
Yep.
And a thing that also helps is all I ever knew was Joe Paterno as the coach,
Yep.
right? Is that consistency, that
Yep.
legacy is something that is just attractive, right?
And by the way, for those that don't know, John Capoletti, the 1973
Yep.
Heisman winner from Penn State, I
Only
think he
Heisman
was
winner.
the only Heisman Trophy
Oh,
winner from Penn State, and a phenomenally central figure
hmm.
to Penn State football. I mean, John Capoletti, almost 50 years later, is still revered at Penn State.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, and you have a bunch of other big name players that went that may be a bigger name than him because
One
of
guy comes to
what they
mind
did.
is Todd Blackledge. Guy does
Oh yeah,
college football. He does commentary on ABC and ESPN.
yeah. I mean, there's a ton, and Capoletti still holds his weight because he's the only Heisman winner.
Hey,
Uh,
Brian, I'll give you a name. I'll give you a name from Penn State's past that you might not remember, or you might remember, but is from a little, hard to find town in West Virginia. guy named Kurt Warner.
Oh yeah.
Kurt Warner is from Pineville, West Virginia, in the deep in the coal fields of West Virginia. Deep in the coal field. I mean, you can't get there from here. I mean, it's deep. But again, to your point, through Paterno's era, all these great football players that came and went on to great success in the NFL as well too. But you're right that I know there has to be, and I will pivot back here in just a second. But this is fascinating to me. There has to still be a contingent of Penn State fans that grew up Penn State fans that will always carry the torch for Joe Paterno.
Oh,
it doesn't matter if James Franklin wins 10 national championships. Yeah. They will always carry the torch for Joe Pa.
I might suggest it's a large portion of them. Large portion.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that statement wholeheartedly. And again, what Joe Paterno did at Penn State, the Sandusky stuff aside, you have to look at what the man did at Penn State. Mm-hmm. He built and it's almost, you can see a lot of similarities, Bryan, or at least I can, to how great companies are built. Joe Paterno went to the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. The middle of nowhere, and built this football dynasty that the national spotlight shone on this little town in eastern Pennsylvania, middle eastern Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And Joe Paterno took that. You know, Penn State was really not much of a football program before, because you mentioned Notre Dame. They've been Notre Dame's been good for 100 years. Yeah, USC 100 years. You know, but Penn State, I mean, he really built something that has lasted. And even Bill O'Brien went there for a year after that. And then James Franklin came from Vanderbilt up to Penn State. He's done incredibly well at Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
But anybody that for the next 50 years, in my opinion, anybody that has a level of success, it's built on the legacy of Joe Paterno. And whatever you think he did right or wrong, you can't deny what the man built.
Exactly. In the context of how the sport of college football works now, the odds that somebody's going to stick around that long are very low, because you know, they'll get rid of you after 2 or 3 years, right? They'll give you a chance.
And Bryan, here's the thing that is amazing to me. And again, I promise we will pivot. But what is amazing to me is that in an era where where Oregon has 5,500 uniforms, Nike school, Penn State's a Nike school. Penn State has had the same helmet for 60 years. They've had the same navy blue jersey. When Penn State, when they walk out on the field, you know that Penn State's on the field. That look is just iconic. That was Joe Paterno.
Yep.
Joe Pa built that look. No name on the back of the jersey. No number on the side of the helmet. You know, no Nittany Lion logo on the side of the helmet. It's iconic. It's just.
They say it's black shoes, basic blues, and no name on the shirt.
And I think that's the way it'll always be.
Yeah, the only time they put the names on was they did it for the kids that didn't leave when Bill O'Brien was there, to honor them, but then they took them off. See,
I don't mind it for a bowl game. I think if you're playing in a bowl game or national, you know, if Penn State makes the playoff, I would totally be for them putting the kids' names on the back of the jersey. So you go to Penn State, you get a job in corporate marketing or corporate sales. It's not for you. Take me through in a little bit of time we've got left. Take me through your journey, the rest of your journey. And I didn't mean to
Yeah, no.
Trust me, I could talk sports all day.
Me too.
But,
Me too.
yeah.
Me too. I'm talking about Penn State all day long.
Yeah.
I knew it was sales, but I knew that I just love being around people. Growing up, my parents were divorced. My mom worked a lot. My dad wasn't around. So like my family was my friends. I hung out with them, all the time. I hung out with their family. So I just became a people person by default.
Mhm.
And that's what I loved about sales, is being around people. So when I left that job after a year, they gave me a raise on Monday and I quit on Friday. I was like, I can't do this. Right.
Yeah.
It just wasn't for me. It's good for other people. And, I got into the mortgage industry where I could build my own business, build it from scratch, create something. And that's when I got kind of this entrepreneurial bug, is being able to create something from nothing. And
really helping people, because you were sitting across
Mhm.
the table from first-time home buyers and
Yep.
people of all walks of life in every situation. Yeah.
Yep. And it was just fascinating to me. And then along the way, like anything that I could take on to learn about psychology and sales, and do it and operate in a way that you're not out there. I'll say it this way: you're there to serve people and not sell them or trick them. Right? I'm not big into hey, tricking people into buying something. I just not my cup of tea. And it was just fascinating.
Yeah. You better buy today, man. The deal's not going to be,
Yeah. Yeah. I honor that when, on a super transactional sale. Like I had a guy come to the door the other day trying to sell, or he was selling pest stuff. And I can understand, like his tactics he was good. And I had a hard time resisting, right? Like, no, I'd say no 7 million times. But along the way, I just learned all this stuff, and I got into personal growth, and I realized that sales was a communication and a mind game.
Yep.
And if I could master those two, I could actually help a lot of people. And, eventually doing a lot of, moving into insurance and business insurance, I was doing a lot of referral-based business, and all these people, or some people I was referring business to, would always talk to me about like sales concepts, and we would talk, and they would want to pick my brain, like, hey, how do you do that? That's cool how you do that, or with the way you position that. And I was doing lunches and breakfasts and coffees and beers, and I just got sick of doing all that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was sick of having lunch with somebody, explaining to them, and eventually somebody asked me, they said, hey, like, my buddy Eric, he said, hey, I'm leaving the banking world. I'm done being a banker, and I'm really fascinated with investments. I'm going to an investment firm, a wholesale investment firm. And he's like, can you help me make that transition? And I remember I used to meet him every Monday, and he would pay me, and we'd have lunch together, and we just talk about sales and how to think about it and how to operate in certain ways. And within 6 months, he was top 3 in every metric that his company kept, and I was on a path to make $500,000.
Wow.
And it was fascinating going through that journey with him. And granted, that wasn't all me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he did the work, and I just kind of, guided and talked in the background. And around that time, I got into serious conversations with my business partner, and he asked me to come on board with OnPurpose Growth. And I literally threw all my chips in. I literally quit my job and jumped in full time to create this. And it's been great ever since, because it's kind of like when I submit to the journey and have faith, magical things happen, right? It's that doesn't mean it's easy. That doesn't mean, right, it's a cakewalk, but it's allowed me to meet people like yourself, right? If I'm not doing what I'm doing now, we probably wouldn't have met. And just the thing that I love about it the greatest is helping other people who left corporate America to start their entrepreneurial journey, helping them understand that you don't have to be a different person when you're in sales mode, right? You don't have to turn into the sales guy.
That's right.
There's ways where
100%.
you just show up authentically, understand some concepts in communication, and just be yourself. That's what sells most, right? As you know, right? People buy you, not necessarily the company you work for.
Well,
right?
you have to be the same all the time, Bryan, because I've said this: customers crave consistency.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're buying a car or a pizza.
Yeah.
You crave consistency because when you think about a pizza place that you like, you can already taste the product in your mind. You know what you're going there for that particular taste.
Yep.
And when they do something different, it's like, man, you guys changed the sauce up, didn't you? Or the dough doesn't taste quite right. And I've always said that. I've always said customers crave consistency. So for salespeople, and I've told salespeople before, I said, just be the same all the time. You don't have to worry about it. Right? Because your customers are going to buy you, but what they are also buying is that you're the same all the time. It's easy to do business with you because they know what to expect. And so take me through, you mentioned the obstacle that you overcame in 2008. Is there another obstacle that you overcame in your life that really helped shape the person that you are today?
I think it's, growing up. When I was in, how old was I? I don't know. I was probably 6th or 7th grade when, I was living with my mom. We were.
Man, that'll happen to you, especially when you push 50. That'll happen to you a lot. You just kind of blank out for a minute.
Oh, I'm getting there. About 6th or 7th grade, my mom had come to my brother and I, and we lived in a town, Reading. It was about an hour away from Philadelphia. My dad lived in Philadelphia, and my mom came to us and said, "Hey, to help you guys, I need to advance my career. And the only way to advance my career is to move with the company that I had." And she's like, "Hey, we moved, 6 or 7 times already. Do you want to stay here? Your dad's going to move in with you." And my brother and I opted to stay so I could stay with the consistent in junior high and high school. And then my dad came to live with us, but he, like I mentioned, he worked like really hard. So we were very independent. He worked 2 jobs. He basically came home and slept, right? So it's not the greatest condition for a young kid to grow up in. And I learned early on, through struggling through it, on how to be responsible through being irresponsible, right? Like I ran into the wall, like messed things up. And I had to figure out how to take care of myself. And that actually led to, getting basically a full-time job in high school. My dad came home one time and when I was a junior, and he had lost one of his jobs. So I went and got a job, and I quit the football team. I remember it clearly to this day. I wasn't showing up to off-season workouts, and the head coach brought me into his office and basically said, "Look, man, you need to make a decision." And this pained me. He said, "You need to make a decision. You're either going to work or you're going to play football. You need to choose one." And I was like, my dad lost his job. Like you're making me choose, right? I didn't think I had to choose. So I threw in the towel on football because of that moment, right? And it's all these kind of micro moments that are building up that really instilled in me, mini crises that instilled in me that I need to take care of myself. I need to be responsible. But at the same time, I wasn't provided the emotional intelligence that when it really hit the fan, how to operate, right? I didn't have that parental oversight. So like when something in 2008, 2009 came, it overwhelmed me, right?
You got really good at decision making. It was ABC, black and white.
Right.
There was no time to process it. And
Yes.
You're exactly right. There are times that you've got to allow yourself either to be mad, sad, or punch something.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with don't hit any living animate thing.
Exactly.
Make it all inanimate.
Exactly.
But coming through those things, Bryan, as we wrap up, man, you've been so great with your time. What's your biggest piece of intentional encouragement for folks? Because somebody listening out there could say, man, I'm going through a mini crisis right now. Or somebody could say, man, these last 4 months, I have just felt like my world's crumbling in around me. Or I really feel like I don't know what to do. Or it could be somebody that is exact opposite pendulum and say, man, things have been great. And it helps them, it just reaffirms something in their lives. What's your biggest piece of intentional encouragement?
What you appreciate appreciates. And no matter if it's a good time or a bad time, that's always been a great strategy for me. And it's just popped up recently, right? For me, kind of resurfaced because when the world's crashing in around you, or you take for granted all the good things that are happening, I feel like I get very cloudy minded, where I don't know how to, think right or think clearly or not think through things. And what I've learned through, appreciating things is I see what I actually have. I'm grateful for it. And I can make the proper kind of chess moves in life to continue to get what I want. I may not have, you may not have the right situation or the right resources or the right things in your life. And when you approach it in that way and just start appreciating it, that gets greater. More things show up, right? I think the negativity is what blocks our natural ability to prosper and grow. I don't think it replaces it. I think it just blocks it. I think it's always there, right? When you appreciate things, it removes that block, and it can deliver the joy, happiness, fulfillment that you're looking for in life.
Man, very well said. Very well said. What a beautiful way to end this podcast. Bryan McDonald, tell people where they can find you and find your resources. And you're going to want to get connected to this guy. I promise you. You're going to want to get connected to him. So tell people where they can find you.
So our website's onpurposegrowth.com. It's pretty easy, just OnPurpose Growth spelled out. I've also, you can find me on LinkedIn, where you and me, Bryan, we hang out. So linkedin.com/in.
I'm not giving you a cell phone number. It's private.
No. So my handle on all social media is my last name, first name. So McDonald Bryan, and Bryan with a Y. So if you go to any social media website and put that on the end, you'll see me pop up. Those are pretty and then actually I've got the OnPurpose Growth community on Facebook for entrepreneurs. If people want to find that and join, that's a great place where everybody's hanging out and helping each other.
Yeah, that's and encouraging each other too through these times. Bryan McDonald, man, thank you so much for joining me today on the Intentional Encourager podcast.
Thank you, man. Virtual high five, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, brother. Thanks, man.
My thanks as always to producer Bryce Sexton and technical advisor Matt Means. And the ultimate thanks goes to the Lord Jesus Christ, who provides intentional encouragement every day through His Word. And until next time, remember, everyone, everywhere, at any time, and any place, can be an intentional